vegan diet, vegetarian diet, carnivore diet, omnivore diet. There's so many diets out there. But which one is best for you from an energetic perspective? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Vlad from ReikiScoop.com, and today we will talk a little bit about the energetic implications of multiple types of food or even diets. So before we start, consider giving a thumbs up for this video and even subscribing so that other Reiki or spiritual practitioner enthusiasts can find content just like this one. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So I was mentioning that there are so many types of diets in the world and so many types of food that we can choose. Well, luckily we can choose. But which one is good for us? Which one is optimum for us, beneficial for us from an energetic, maybe even spiritual perspective? Now, I just want to mention, I'm not a nutritionist, nor a doctor, nor a chemist. So I'm not going to address the subject from a nutrition point of view or dietary point of view. I'm just going to talk about the energetic implications of each type of food and how they can benefit us from a certain point of view. Now, know that each person is different. I am different from you. You are different from the person next to you. Everybody has a different vibration. Although we do have a similar anatomy. We have the same anatomy on a physical level. We have the same anatomy on an energetic level. However, we function a little bit different. Again, from a vibrational energetic perspective. The flow of energy is different. Both universal life force energy, that is the downward current, and also the vital energy flow, which is the upward current, are different for each and every person. Therefore, the dietary needs, types of food are also very different from an energetic beneficial perspective for each person. So what's good for me might not be good for you. But here's the thing. There are moments in our lives when we either feel the need, and I'm not talking about craving, I'm talking about actually feeling the need. Your body tells you that it's time for a different type of food for a certain time, maybe for a few days, maybe for a few weeks even, or maybe a month or two. And perhaps you should listen to your body in that moment because, again, this is not about a craving. A craving is for the moment. And you satisfy it and you feel joyful, and that's great. But that doesn't mean that you should always listen to cravings. Rather, you should listen to your body. You should listen to what it needs. That being said, there's a whole controversial among people for which type of diet or type of food is better for everybody. Well, first of all, there is no one standalone version that's good for everybody. And that's pretty obvious, and it should make sense from the start, right? There are certain, as I mentioned, we function differently. And for example, I've tried like almost, I think, all types of diets and fastings and foods. And I can tell you which one felt great for certain times of my life and others, maybe they didn't feel that great, although they are quoted as being super healthy and super useful for you. For example, let's start with the raw vegan diet or the choice of eating raw vegan types of foods. It's great. It didn't work for me that much. It didn't work for my organism, and it didn't work for the long run. And I didn't even get to try it for the long run, although some people might argue, some, raw vegans might say, well, you should have done it for a long run to actually see its benefits. Maybe you're right. But from my inner self perspective, from an energetic perspective, yes, I did feel more light. I did feel I could use Reiki and I could use energetic cleansing, meditation easier. It functioned easier. That's true. And there's a reason for that. I'll get into that in a bit. So from an energetic perspective, overall feeling was, I feel lighter. I feel very good with this kind of approach, with a raw vegan diet or raw vegan types of foods. That being said, something was missing, and it wasn't only about food. It was just not right for me, for my type of organism, not only biologically speaking, but energetically and maybe spiritually speaking. Then I tried vegan and vegetarian. Vegetarian was actually the middle path. I had tried for a few weeks vegetarian, just only fish. I added for meat, the rest was all vegetables and fruits. Again, I felt very light. Energetically speaking, for me, it was probably the better and the most balanced of all. And it was, not only I felt lighter, but it was easier for me to practice Reiki. The energy flow was quite intense. So everything was good. Really, it was like the sweet spot. There was one thing missing though. And that was a certain level of grounding and flow of vital energy for what I needed then. And what I mean by this is about sports. I loved and I still like to practice sports, whether it's jogging, weightlifting, martial arts, tennis, football, whatever it is that you guys might like or have practiced before or still practice. Those diets can work for people that practice sports. However, in the long run, for me, it didn't work. And for many others might not work because they don't have, it's not about nutrition, it's about something missing from a vital anchoring, earth anchoring, energetic perspective, if that makes sense. And what I'm trying to say is that, as I mentioned, vegetarian worked probably the best when it comes to spiritual practices. From an energetic view, for me, it was probably the best one. The vegan, I didn't mention that. I mentioned the raw vegan. The vegan was, again, missing something a lot, like the raw vegan. And this is not only about me, this is just from an energetic perspective what happens. You will feel obviously lighter for spiritual practices, yoga, theta healing, Reiki, meditation, whatever it is that you're practicing. And I'm not talking about sports, I'm talking about strictly spiritual practices. Meditative practices, if you wish to call them. Yeah, the raw vegan, the vegetarian, all work amazing with this approach. But in the long run, at least for me, again, something was still missing even with the vegetarian. If you also practice sports besides spiritual practices, and I'm not talking only about walking in nature. That's not really a sport, but that's extremely useful, but it's not. I'm talking about really dynamic sports. And this doesn't include Tai Chi. This includes something really dynamic. So if you practice that and you also practice spiritual, if you also are engaged in spiritual practices, what worked for me, and I'm not allowed to advise you, but maybe you can try it, was to alternate between vegetarian and sometimes eating meat. And now each person likes or different types of meat. I'm not going to get into that. It helped me maintain a balanced vital energy flow for what I was engaged in, considering what I was engaged in, the sports I was engaged in. And also having to practice Reiki, meditations. So I had to balance this somehow in a way that would be fit, that would be balanced, that would be ideal and beneficial for both aspects of my life. And now there's the one I didn't mention, one of them I didn't mention, the carnivorous diet or the omnivore diet, which implies the omnivore diet is like you eat meat and you eat fish and you eat vegetables and fruits. Carnivorous diet is the one that you only eat meat. It doesn't work for everybody, and as vegetarian doesn't work for everybody. This is not one solution for everybody. However, eating meat all the time, like having this diet, I'm not sure how useful it is for certain people. For some people, I know that they really enjoyed it, and it has proved useful for their energy level, for their immune system. Again, one solution does not fit everybody. But what I can tell you is that you're really anchored when you only eat meat. So like no vegetables or fruits, or you alternate between them, but most of your diet is based on meat. You have a lot of raw energy, a lot of vital energy, you're better connected to the earth. So if you're doing the really dynamic sports, probably it's going to be useful for you, and you're not doing anything else except maybe work and the sport. That's it. You're not engaged in too many spiritual practices. That's going to probably work for you. So from an energetic perspective of the body, it works for you. However, meat holds a lot of programs. not so good programs, not so healthy programs. And I do eat meat, and I can tell you that. And there's a way to cleanse meat, so bear with me. Meat comes from an animal that has been sacrificed. The way it has been sacrificed matters a lot. But either way, a sentient mammal has obviously more programs, a denser energy and vibration than a plant will have. Again, I do eat meat, and I have to say that. So it's going to have a denser vibration and energy level and more programs, residual programs. Even some of them might have negative programs, depending on the meat, depending how the animal has been raised. Depends on multiple factors. Let's not say negative, but there's going to be low vibrational programs, low vibrational energies because when you sacrifice that mammal, that animal, and this can happen for plants as well, but I'll get into that in just a minute. But the mammal, the animal, feels more intense due to their denser level of existence. They will feel that pain, that moment of passing, differently than a plant, different than a vegetable, different than a fruit. Pretty obvious. And that energy and information will be transferred to the tissue and to the meat. And you're going to eat that. So obviously meat from the start offers a lower vibration when you eat a lot of it. I do mean when you are constantly eating, like every day eating meat. So you're gonna lower your vibration. It doesn't mean that it's gonna be negative. The vibration is not gonna be negative, it's gonna be a bit lower. You're gonna be more anchored. That's the beneficial part. You're gonna have more vital energy. You're gonna have a better time being engaged in dynamic activities, like I mentioned, sports and dynamic sports. I mean, not just Tai Chi or just walking. It's not really a sport. I'm just talking about really dynamic sports. So you're going to have a better time when you eat meat handling such activities. That being said, again, meat specifically, chicken, pork, beef, all of those, not so much fish, but also it's also in this kind of category. Fish is a much more lighter meat for certain reasons, but from an energetic perspective, again, we're talking about not a nutrition perspective, but an energetic perspective. You're gonna have to remove those programs and that denser energy that exists within the meat, and Reiki can help with that. You activate your palms, you place your activated palms on the food for 5-10 minutes. Maybe when you're cooking it, maybe when it's already on the plate. When you desire, you can also add the symbols on the food. And you're gonna help, at least a bit, cleanse that residual or that dense energy from your food, from your meat. So from an energetic perspective, meat will always be a bit heavier, will always lower the vibration. And if you are planning on offering yourself a self-treatment or offer other people treatments or attunements, you should consider, if you really love meat, you should consider at least a couple, if not 3-4 hours before an attunement, offering an attunement, and even receiving an attunement actually, or offering therapy around 3 hours, again, maybe 4, depends on your digestive system. Let's say just 3 hours before of receiving, offering therapy, attunements, and so on. Because you need that digestion to take place, because that low vibration and the meat requires a harder, a more intense digestive process, right? Because of the denser elements I mentioned. So your vital energy and the universal life force energy will work a little bit more for the process that's taking place also at the biological level. Make no mistake, it takes place also on an energetic level. The energetic level, the energetic anatomy is not spared because the digestive system is mostly biological. It is, yes, but it's also an energetic process. So take that into account when eating meat, if you really love meat, in the days of offering attunements, therapy for multiple people. Personally, I avoid meat for that reason. Not because I don't like it, not because it's a sin, not because it's a bad thing, but because it's just a lower vibration and it's going to lower my vibration. It's going to take a long time to digest, so I just eat something more vegetarian or vegan based. Vegan raw vegan, vegetarian are all having a better or more cleansed vibration, a more cleansed energy level than meat has, generally speaking. And of course, for the third or 10th time, I'm not the one to tell you which one is better for you. You have to know that. You have to listen to your body. I personally prefer to listen to my body and eat what I feel would be useful for my body at that moment in time. And this is not always about cravings. It can be easily confused with a craving, but it's not the same. I forgot to mention that for the raw vegan, and vegetarian, you can also apply Reiki, the same way you applied for the meat products, the meat dish. You can apply Reiki for drinks, water, juices, whatever you like to drink. You can even send Reiki to your fridge. This is I was laughing with one of my friends. This is like a cheat code. Okay, so why don't we send to the fridge? That's true. But when you are cooking the food, or when somebody else is cooking the food, they are placing, or you are placing, the energy you have at that moment, the vibration, maybe the healing or the stress or the whatever you feel at that moment, will be placed in the cooking moment. So keep that also into account. That's a different energetic process that's going to take place when the food is cooked rather than when it is in the fridge. So you might want to actually send Reiki when the food is cooking, as you are cooking it, or when it arrives in your plate cooked by someone else. And that's for removing residual energies, programs, dense vibrations, and so on. So, in conclusion, there's nothing wrong with eating meat. There's nothing wrong with being vegan, raw vegan, vegetarian, eating everything, omnivore, like eating the plants, vegetables, meat. Personally, I like all of them. I respect all diets. I respect people who enjoy all those diets. I'm just saying that not everything applies. There's no one rule for everybody. And there are certain moments in which you might need a certain type of food. Again, for spiritual practices, it's obviously better to eat less meat and to don't quit smoking or don't drink alcohol, or at least considerably diminish the amounts, because you are engaged in something special. You are channeling universal energy, or you are raising your vital energy. Either way, you are working with something of a less denser, more finer, more refined substance, let's call it. And you're allowing it to flow, the energy, the universal life force energy or the vital energy, to flow through the body for healing and for awareness, spiritual evolution, for activating the gates of consciousness, like the chakras, like cleansing energetic channels. Obviously, if you eat too much meat, when you want to achieve this, to do these practices and have these goals, meat is if excessive meat especially, is going to be a little bit of a burden. And the results might not be exactly the ones you were expecting. That's why I recommend personally eating meat for those who are also engaged in physical dynamic activities from an energetic standpoint, but also use the Reiki method to cleanse the energy from the meat products when it's cooked or when it arrives in your plate. And also use Reiki even for raw, vegan or vegetarian dishes. It's not a problem there. And when it comes to eggs, or let's say like not meat, but it's like something in between. I'm not sure what example to give you right now, but eggs it's a pretty good example. It's like in between with the eggs. They're not that low vibration. They're not as meat-wise with that denser energy, but they're not vegetarian as well. It's like something in between. Personally, I like eggs. And I think the fact that they are like, from an energetic perspective, in between, quite helps a lot for any party. For sports, people who prefer sports, and for those who like to engage in spiritual practices, or for those who use both. So take that into consideration and into account when you want to eat your favorite food and also have a certain type of practice. But generally speaking, even if you're raw vegan, I would not stuff myself with food before a spiritual practice, and of course for digestive reasons, not even before a sport or dynamic action, but especially before practicing meditations or Reiki. For the vegans and vegetarians, 1.5 to 2 hours, and for the meat eaters at least 3 hours, because you need that digestion process to have already taken place, or at least the main part of it to have taken place, and have easier time feeling the flow of energy, the vibration, and practicing whatever you want to practice so that you can achieve the elements I was mentioning, like clearing the chakras, the energy channels, raising awareness, and so on. So, in the conclusion, because I've made this video quite long enough, listen to your body, listen to your needs, not the cravings, but listen to your body. And this is not only the mind or the soul, those are parts of the body. Listen to your inner self, listen to your vibe, to your vibration, listen to your spirit, listen to what it says to you, what it needs, not what it craves. And also take into account what you are planning to do the next day, the day after, what you are engaged in from a spiritual perspective, physical perspective, so that you can use the best food products that require the best nutrients also, and energetic nutrients for your activities. So thank you for being here. Again, considering offering a thumbs up and subscribing so that other Reiki enthusiasts, and not only Reiki enthusiasts, spiritual practitioners might find and maybe they resonate with content just like this one. So thank you for being here, and blessings to you, and I'll see you in the next video.